So I had this conversation with my kids the other day. So what do you guys want to do today?
I want TV.
What?
TV.
You're gonna watch TV?
Can we play video games, Daddy? There's nothing to do. I'm bored.
And it got me thinking, what happened to the good old days when kids enjoyed playing outdoors, being in the woods, running around, and using their imaginations? And this gave me an idea. Maybe I should make a book about this. And so I jumped onto my table and started writing, and then started drawing. And time went by, 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. I don't remember how long it was, but I'd finally finished the book. I'd sketched out the layout. I was like, I'm ready to share this with the world. And so the first thing I do, jump on my computer, look at all these different publishers, and send them emails. Click, 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 click. Dear publisher, I have this great idea. I want to encourage kids to use their imaginations and play outside again. Would you be willing to publish my book? And then comes the hard part. The waiting. 6 months go by. Nothing. 1 year goes by. You just got an email. And guess what? It's a no. All that work, all that effort, this idea could have been so great. Wasted, gone. But no, it's not wasted. You can self-publish your book. Yes, it's possible. So this is part 1 of a 2-part series that I'm going to do on publishing your own books. Part 1 is going to focus on the self-publishing aspect, and part 2 is going to focus on how I then leveraged my self-publishing to get published. And so today I'm going to talk you through the 6 steps I have to self-publishing. So step number 1 is set a deadline. As creatives, we're great at coming up with these amazing ideas, but we're terrible at following through, because the next new idea pops up and we might follow it, or commercial work comes up and then that personal project goes on the back burner. It's basically learning to discipline yourself to work the same way you would if you were being published by a publisher. So imagine you are your publisher now. I mean, you are if you're self-publishing, and so you have to set the deadline and you need to keep to it. And now, what helps sometimes is having an accountability partner to help follow up with you, whether that is your wife, your partner, your girlfriend, or maybe it's another creative who is along the same journey with you, and they will keep you accountable to keep it going. So set yourself a deadline and stick to it. Part number 2, and yes, this might sound obvious, but part number 2 is writing the actual story. Now, this is the hardest part. It's learning to figure out, number 1, what is the key emotion aspect that you want to talk about in this story, and how can you then put it in a way that it doesn't look down at kids, it speaks to them at their level, but also speaks to the parents. Because remember, children don't buy the books, the parents do. So it's about finding that balance of speaking to parents, but also speaking to kids. And more than anything else, it's telling the story in a way that they will connect to it. So step number 3 is plan the layout. And so this is the most important part after the writing the story that you need to focus on, because the layout is really going to show the reader how the book is going to flow between images and words and how each page lays out. So the first thing I do is create a thumbnail, and a thumbnail is a quick way of creating a sketch of the whole page layout and seeing how the words flow in conjunction with the pictures. This way I'm not investing so long on each page that I wasted a huge amount of time. Rather than that, I've quickly made a small sketch, and that gives me a great sense of what the final outlook is going to look like. Once I've honed in on the layout, then it's a question of moving on to finalizing the artwork. Which brings me to step 4, which is to finish the book and finish it on time. So you've got your story, you've got your layout, now you got to finalize your illustrations, you got to finalize your layout. And if you're not a designer and you're just an illustrator or just an author, this is where it's important to collaborate with the right types of people. So you want to get a designer on there to help you design the layout of your book. You want to work with an illustrator to enhance your storytelling if you're just an author. So if you're all starting out on your journey to work within this field in the industry, collaborate, work together. That way you all benefit in the long run. Maybe you don't make a lot of money in the first run, but it's a learning experience and you can leverage that when it comes to getting published, which I will speak about in part 2. Step number 5 is budget, and this is really crucial. You're looking at what sort of finances you have, how much you're willing to invest, finding the right printer to match your needs, ensuring that it's a high quality product, and then of course working out the cost of what your book's going to be. You have to make sure that you're making a profit on top of your costs. So if your book is say $3, you want to sell it for something like $10 total, cost price plus $7 profit margin. Obviously some of that profit might go into ad spend, and that will reduce it to say you're making $5 profit and $5 was cost including advertising. Which nicely brings me up to number 6, which is spread the news. You could have the most amazing book, the most amazing product, but if you don't spend the time sharing the idea, sharing your product, nobody's gonna see it, nobody's gonna buy it. And this is where it's important to learn some basics in marketing. So Seth Godin has this fantastic saying. He says, great marketing is the generous and audacious work of saying, I have a better alternative. Come with me. And this completely shifted my perspective on how I marketed my book, What Wonder Shapes We Are. Because rather than telling people I made a book and this is what it's about, I shared the story behind the book. So why did I make the book? What motivated me? What was the driving factor? And by sharing the story behind why I made the book, this created an emotional connection. People were able to learn about the thought process. People were able to work out why this book was relevant for them, how it would help them. And so by connecting with them and by making yourself known, people buy from people they know, like, and trust. You've created that connection by telling your story. So I'm just gonna link up right here the story behind What Wonder Shapes We Are. Now, once you've come up with a marketing strategy, it's also essential that you figure out how are people gonna find your book. So you have to think about the distribution of the book. There's a couple of easy ways to do it. Number 1 is your website. So you can just set up an online e-commerce shop. Nowadays, there's lots of options like Shopify or Etsy and even Amazon to set up as your distributor. So online is one way you could do it. The second way you could do it is local markets. So you could have a stall at a local market and you could sell your products there. Number 3 is your local bookstores. See if they're willing to stock your books. And so with that, the only thing is they usually take quite a high commission. The stores around Dublin that I did stock my book at took about 40%. So that is quite a huge hit on your profit margin. So that's just something to keep in mind. But the fantastic news is with social media, we have access to our customers directly. And you could put something up on social media and people will be able to find it. So that's it for me. Those are my 6 tips on how to self-publish. If you have any questions on this specific area, please feel free to write it in the comments or DM me. I will always respond to any questions, whether it's talking about specific printers or how I went about doing any of the 6 steps. And don't forget, part 2 is coming, where I'm going to dive into how I leverage my self-publishing get published. Be true, be you, stay fruitful.